Today we're going to talk about 3 missing person cases that are just truly bizarre. Before we dive in, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you're interested in all things true crime, including cold cases, missing person cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. Let's get started. On June 30th, 2014, Lars Mittank and several friends flew from Berlin, Germany to Bulgaria. They planned to spend 1 month in the resort town of Golden Sands. Lars and his friends were having a great time just experiencing the resort, obviously the nightlife, the beaches. All was going well until one evening. One evening, they got into an argument with a group of other men. During this argument, Lars got separated from his friends. It's reported that after Lars was separated from his friends, he was attacked by 4 men, and one of them hit him in the head. Lars didn't actually seek medical attention right away. Instead, he waited it out. It took some convincing from his friends, but Lars finally sought medical attention, and it's a good thing he did. He was ultimately diagnosed with a concussion and a ruptured eardrum. The doctor treating Lars prescribed him an antibiotic, and he told him not to fly anytime soon because the pressure from the airplane could damage his ear more. This meant that, unfortunately, Lars had to stay behind while the rest of his friends went back home. Lars's friends would later report that when they left, he was in good spirits. Once his friends left to go back home, he booked a hotel in another part of the city that was a bit cheaper. And although Lars's friends reported that he seemed relaxed and in a good mood when they left, things changed later that night. Later that evening, he called his mother Sandra in a state of panic. During the call, he told his mom that he believed he was being followed, and he asked her to cancel his debit card and credit cards because he thought he was going to be robbed. Sandra later said she knew her son was in danger and she could hear the panic in his voice. She said she could hear his heart beating over the phone. He was petrified. In surveillance footage taken from the hotel that Lars was staying in, Lars appeared restless. He was pacing the hotel foyer, he was peering out windows, and he was even hiding in the elevator. Something seemed off. And then eventually around 1 a.m., Lars just left the hotel, and nobody knows exactly where he went during those hours. In the early mornings of July 8, 2014, Lars called a taxi to take him to the Varna airport. When he arrived at the airport, he sent his mother a text just to check in, and then he went to find a medical doctor. He just wanted to make sure that his ear was healed enough so that he could fly back home. The doctor that gave Lars his exam would go on to report that he seemed erratic and pretty nervous. After approval from his doctor, Lars went and waited for his flight home. That is, until he did something really strange. He stood up from his chair and shouted, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." After Lars was done yelling, he actually dropped his phone and wallet. He ran down the airport hallway, out of the front doors, and then ran off the property before he was seen climbing over a fence and running into the woods. After entering the woods, he was never seen again. Neither him or his remains were ever found. So there are a lot of theories about this case, everything from he was actually being followed and he was terrified for his life. Some people believe that the medications he was taking had side effects. Others say that maybe he had a mental illness that was undiagnosed, like schizophrenia. So there are a lot of theories happening here. But his mother did report that nobody in their family had schizophrenia, and nobody had ever been, diagnosed with it, so it was unlikely. And as for people following him, it's never been proven. They've never seen any footage of him being followed. They don't actually know who attacked him that evening. So really, there's a lot of theories that we can't actually prove. And since Bulgaria has some of the highest rates of human trafficking, some people believe that maybe that was what happened to him. And then in 2019, a truck driver gave a ride to a person he described as looking like an older version of Lars. He dropped him off in Dresden, Germany, which was very close to Lars's hometown. But to this day, nobody knows what happened to Lars or if he's still alive. Our next case is just so unbelievable that I'm still struggling to wrap my mind around it. Asha Degree was born on August 5th, 1990 in the town of Shelby, North Carolina. She was raised by 2 loving and hardworking parents who devoted their life to not only their children, but to their church. Asha had an older brother named O'Brien, and he was only a few months older than her. And because their parents worked so hard, the two were often able to let themselves in after school. And both children were very much trusted by their parents, and they never strayed far from the apartment anyways. Asha's mother would describe her as very timid. She was very wary of strangers, and she would never pet a dog that she saw on a street. Her mother would also say that she was a very sensible girl, even only at the age of 9 years old. And that's why this case is even more so baffling. Because this case is so strange and pretty baffling, I want to focus on the timeline. So let's get started. Saturday, February 12th, 2000. On Saturday, both Asha and her brother have games. It's reported that Asha fouled during the game, and their team actually lost. The girls were devastated. Not only was Asha crying, but the whole team was. And although it was a devastating loss for Asha, she eventually recouped and went to her cousin's house for a sleepover. And then on Sunday, February 13th, 2000, at around 11 a.m., Asha and her family go to church. At around 12 p.m. or so, after church, they went to their aunt's house to have some lunch and family time. Later that evening, Asha decided to take a nap because obviously she had been up super late at her cousin's house and enjoying her sleepover. It's believed that around 8:30, she wakes up, she goes to the den, and watches TV with her family. And then at approximately 9 p.m., a car hits a power pole and knocks out power, including at Asha's house. Monday, February 14th, 2000. At approximately 12 a.m., the power was restored. Asha's father, Harold, actually checks on the children at around 2:30 or so, and O'Brien mentions that he heard his sister around 2:30 a.m. stirring, but he assumed maybe she had just woken up and was shifting in bed or maybe needed to use the bathroom. And then at approximately 3:45, something really strange happens. A truck driver working late hours reported to see a girl with a backpack walking down the dangerous Highway 18. And so he turned around and went to make sure the girl was okay. He said that the girl never looked up at him when he was talking to her. She just stared straight ahead and looked like she knew where she was going. And so he turned around again and went back to keep talking to her. And then it is believed she became frightened and ran into the woods. I just want to stress that Asha's mom has mentioned that Asha was a very timid child, and it's 3:45 in the morning. She's walking down a dangerous highway not made for walking. It's raining, it's storming. I don't know, this all seems very strange to me. And then there was another sighting at 3:45 and then at 4. And then the last sighting was between 4:15 and 4:30 a.m. on Valentine's Day 2000. At around 6:30 a.m., Asha's mother goes to get her and her brother O'Brien up, which was easy because they shared a bedroom. When Asha's mother entered the room, she realized Asha wasn't there. She didn't panic yet. She thought perhaps Asha had gotten up early and was downstairs already. So she headed downstairs and looked all over for Asha. And that's when it hit her. Asha wasn't there. She panicked. She got everybody up, they started searching for her, and then they called the police. It's around 6:39 when the police are called, and between 6:39 and 6:45, police arrive, a lot of police, search dogs come in, and everybody is getting geared up to look for Asha. By 7 o'clock, every cop in the county had been out. All the news reporters were there. Everybody had gathered to begin the search for Asha. The cops started by checking in Asha's bedroom to make sure and confirm that nobody had broken in to harm her and kidnap her. But they didn't see any signs of forced entry. So everybody begins searching, and then a call comes in from one of the drivers that saw her that morning. I just want to note that this is hours later. And I know this is early 2000s, but I don't know, if I saw a little girl walking in the middle of the morning in the dark in a storm by herself, even if I didn't have a cell phone, I think I would try to find a payphone or contact anybody I could and report it right away. I mean, this is a child. This is absolutely terrifying. And I know we're super lucky to have cell phones and basically 911 at the click of a hand, but I just feel like more could have been done in this circumstance. By 9 p.m., obviously all the reportings of Asha had come in, so they could kind of set up a timeline and show progression where she was going towards. So the next day, the search is picking up, and that's when they find their first clue. Later, they would find their first piece of evidence in a shed. I just want to note that this shed was certainly not in a convenient area. Although I've read conflicting reports about the shed's location, it does appear to be off the highway, but you have to walk up a really long driveway to get there. What's even more strange is what they found in the shed. Inside the shed, reportedly, there was a Mickey Mouse hairbow that was Asha's. There was a pencil and a marker, and a picture of a girl that nobody knew And then it took more than a year and a half to get their next clue. August 3rd, 2001, 30 miles from Asha's home, her backpack was discovered. Her backpack had been buried, and construction workers found it when they were digging out on Access Road. I want to note that when her backpack was found, it did look like a child packed it. It wasn't something that an adult would pack. The backpack didn't bring about any new leads. And what's even more bizarre is search dogs were in that area. They searched down the highway, they searched the shed, and they could not pick up her scent. Why? Why couldn't search dogs who were brought the same day she went missing not able to pick up her scent? And then in 2004, an inmate claimed they knew she was murdered and buried. Of course, police checked into this, and it didn't pan out. And then in 2015, things significantly shifted in the investigation. A tipster reported, believe they saw Asha enter into a green Thunderbird or a Lincoln Mark. This was enough to get the case reopened. Her backpack images were released in 2018. And of course, tips continue to trickle in. And then in 2020, another inmate claimed that they had heard somebody say they had murdered Asha and buried the body. Of course, investigators went straight to the prison, interviewed the inmate, but no new information came from this tip. This case is so strange for so many reasons. It was reported that Asha really seemed like a happy kid and that she didn't have any issues among her family. That's not to say there weren't any, because of course we never want to assume. But really nobody knows why or where she was going that evening. I also think it's strange that Asha was described as a timid girl, yet she literally just got up, put sneakers on, grabbed her bag, and was walking down a dangerous highway in the middle of the morning in a storm. It doesn't seem timid to me. I also find it so strange that all this time later, somebody claims that she may have gotten into a car. And then we have the search dogs. Why didn't they pick up her scent anywhere? I believe her items were placed to throw investigators off her scent. And I don't think she's the one who did it. A little girl doesn't just go missing. There has to be a reason she was up that night. And although there are so many theories, I firmly believe that she was groomed. And I'm not sure by who, but that picture of the young girl they found in the shed that nobody knows, that set off alarm bells for me. Did Asha believe she was meeting a pen pal? Did she have a pen pal? Had a family member groomed her? Was somebody close to the family grooming her? There's just so many unanswered questions. Was she sleepwalking? Did she decide to run away from home and ultimately meet her demise? I don't know. Asha's family firmly believes that she's still alive. It is my hope that she's out there, and with all the media coverage still happening, that she gets to come home. Our next case, Tara Calico, is even more bizarre. And you won't believe the ending. At approximately 9:30 a.m. on September 20th, 1988, Tara was going to go on her normal daily bike ride along Highway 47, Valencia County, New Mexico. Patty, Tara's mom, usually joined her on a bike ride, but she decided to stay home because something strange had happened the day before. A motorist nearly ran her and her daughter off the road, and she feels like it was done intentionally. Tara's mother would say that the driver was being very aggressive and seemed to be targeting her and her daughter. But the motorist actually passed them quite a few times on their trip that day. Patty was very wary of Tara going on the bike ride by herself, and she flat out told Tara that much. Of course, Tara thought her mother was overreacting and being overprotective. So, because her bike had a flat, she took her mother's neon pink bike and hit the road. But before leaving, her mother asked her to take a bottle of pepper spray, just in case she ran into any trouble. But Tara, believing that she was completely safe and knowing she had done this a million times before, kind of laughed it off. She even joked with her mom that if she hadn't returned by noon, to send help. What's quite terrifying is she wasn't actually home by noon, and her mom had to call for help. Patty knew her daughter was planning to be home by noon because she had plans to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30, and then later in the day she had a class at the university. I'm sure Patty had been watching the clock pretty much all morning waiting for her daughter to arrive. She was already nervous about the situation and feeling uncomfortable, so of course she was going to be a little bit panicked. And then when noon came and Tara wasn't home, she hopped in her car and made her way down the highway looking for her daughter. But she couldn't find any sign of her. No sign of Tara, no sign of the neon pink bike, nothing. So she headed for home and immediately called the police. And then the following day, Patty decided to continue her search. She went along the route that they had always taken, and this time she found something. It was a cassette tape by the band Boston, the one that Tara had been listening to. She noted that the tape had been on the side of the road that Tara would have taken as she was riding away from home. She saw obvious bike tracks, but she also noticed that it looked like a scuffle had happened. And then her Sony Walkman was found 19 miles from Highway 47. Patty, Tara's mom, firmly believes that her daughter was leaving them clues so that they could find her. And then several witnesses came forward in the days following. They said they noticed a 1953 F-150 Ford following Tara that day. They also noted that the truck was pulling a shell camper. It is believed that Tara probably didn't know the truck was following her because she had headphones on. And in spite of conducting an exhaustive search, Tara was never found, nor was her bike. And then 9 months later, a disturbing clue was found. On June 15th, 1989, a woman was waiting for a parking spot, which was occupied by a white Toyota van with no windows. She described the driver of the van as a man probably in his 30s with a mustache. After he pulled out and she took his spot, she found a Polaroid. This wasn't any Polaroid though. The woman was horrified when she picked it up, when she saw a young woman, hands and feet bound, her mouth taped, and a young boy in the same position, bound and gagged next to her. Although it's not confirmed, the van in the parking lot and the van in the picture seemed to be the same van. Because the two people in the photo looked to be in danger, she went to the authorities immediately. Obviously, they took this serious. They set up roadblocks. They were looking for this white van, but that person was already long gone. Investigators took the Polaroid to Tara's mother. At first, Patty didn't think it was her daughter. That was until she saw the scar. In the photo, the girl in the picture had a scar on her thigh, and it looked eerily similar to the one Tara had gotten in a car accident. And then she noticed something even more terrifying. Next to the taped-up girl was a novel. The V.C. Andrews novel, My Sweet Audrina, happened to be her daughter's favorite novel. It is believed that the girl in the picture was Tara. And then in April 2010, a man on his deathbed had a confession. Henry Brown claimed he knew what happened to Tara. The man said that Leroy Chavez, Lawrence Romeo Jr., intentionally hit Tara with their truck. They picked the girl up, drove her to a gravel pit where they took turns assaulting her. When she threatened to go to the authorities, one of the men held her and the other stabbed her to death. Henry Brown, the man confessing this from his deathbed, reported that Lawrence Romeo Jr.'s father, the sheriff of Valencia at that time, Rene Riviera, was said to have helped his son cover up the crime. Although the sheriff has never been considered a person of interest, although I firmly believe he should be, he resigned because of the controversy in 2011. And then in 2017, he was arrested on assault and domestic violence charges. And although no arrests have been made, in 2018, the FBI and Valencia County sheriffs issued a joint statement. And honestly, when you think this case can't get any more strange, it does. In their joint statement, they said they have evidence suggesting that Tara was attacked by two boys in a pickup truck, who later called their parents to help clean up the crime scene. However, they never named their suspects, and still no arrests have been made. There are so many theories about this case, and I feel like you can't ignore them. It's strange to me that more than one person has said these boys ran Tara off the road and ended up murdering her, and then obviously the day before this, somebody was following her and her mother and aggressively tried to run them off the road. I feel like we can't overlook that. But then we have to go to that picture. If that's the case, then the other story doesn't make much sense. So if they ran her off the road, they put her in the truck, they assaulted her, and then murdered her, she wouldn't have been in that van. I'm not sure which is true, and I'm not sure what happened to Tara. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video or any other video on the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. Thanks, guys.